Hey everybody, I'm back for part 2 of the Persuasive Paragraph assignment video. YouTube stops videos at the limit is 10 minutes, so I have to make sure to stop and divide it into parts. So that's the Tolman model, and if you're still having trouble with it, you can let me know, but what I do recommend you do is that you go back again one more time and look at the slides uh, and look back at the quiz that we did, because those are examples of different ways in which the Tolman model can be used. Maybe this seems like a pain, having to learn this structure, but the reason that we're doing it, and the reason I'm having you doing it, is because in the long run, as you're doing assignments, as you're writing papers throughout your time, it's actually easier if you have a little bit more of a structure in mind for each paragraph. That simple structure is fine, and that's probably what we're used to doing. But if you use the simple structure, then once you start writing, you may notice, oh, this doesn't feel as organized, or it doesn't flow as well, or it doesn't really seem to fully explain the point in the way I want. And using the Tolman model gives us a structure, it gives us a plan, a model, so that we can uh, really efficiently and effectively make these strong, persuasive paragraphs. So it seems hard now, but in the long run, this is going to be a skill that's going to help your writing. So that's the Tolman model. Now, just to give you guys a heads up, just so you know, there's a rubric that's attached to this, and the breakdown of the scores is that the first part is claim and support. So basically the content that you're coming up with. What is the claim? What is the support that you're using? And that is worth 4 marks out of 10. So a big chunk. Another 3 marks comes from organization and structure. So are you using the Tolman structure? Do you have a topic sentence, a data section, warrant, and a concluding sentence? Also, it should all be one paragraph, so it should be one block of text, not small chunks. And within that, part of the mark is also how effectively is it being used. So is the paragraph flowing well? Is it effective? Is it making the best use of that structure? And that's worth 3 marks out of 10. So we're up to 7 marks now. Now the final 3 marks comes from writing skills. So clarity of the writing, the effectiveness of the writing, and grammar. So before you submit the assignment, please give yourself a chance to read it over, look for grammar errors, look for mistakes, and a really good way of avoiding grammar errors is to look at previous assignments for any class that you've taught, any English class where someone might have written feedback. And if in the past you've had things like run-on sentences or sentence fragments or verb errors, then that gives you a hint on what you're going to have to be careful to avoid this time. The other thing, of course, is to look at the grammar lesson that we did this past week. Um, the reason we're doing this lesson now is because I want to give you guys a chance. I want to help you try to avoid some of those mistakes. So grammar is a big part of that 3 marks for the writing section. Another part of it is the clarity of the writing and the effectiveness of the writing. And the best piece of advice that I can give you for that is to try to use simple, direct language, right? We're still using things like pathos, maybe, some of you. And so that means that there's still room for language that is evocative or interesting. But what we really want to avoid is uh, complication or complexity just for the sake of complication, right? We want to avoid having really long, confusing sentences just for the sake of having them because we think, maybe I'll sound smarter this way. It's totally understandable that if you feel a little bit uncomfortable writing, if you don't feel like it's your strong suit, if you have some anxiety about it, that we might have a tendency to want to make the sentences longer and have bigger words and more complicated words. But that's not really what's going to make the writing effective. It's about communication. We want to get our argument and our ideas so that they're really understood by the reader. So the clearer we can make it, the more precise we can make it, the more direct we can make the writing, the more effective it's going to be. So that's part of what I'm looking at. How effective is the writing? How clear is it? And as I mentioned in the grammar lesson, a good rule of thumb is to try to limit sentences to one or two clauses, dependent or independent clauses, but one or two clauses on average. Maybe you'll have some sentences that have three clauses, one or two, but we shouldn't have a sentence that's longer than that. And if you have an extremely long sentence, that's something to watch out for. So I hope this has been helpful as a reminder. The last thing I'm going to do here is identify the other resources that I have in this folder for you guys. So first of all, you'll see that there is a discussion board. Now this is not a graded discussion board. You don't have to participate, but it's a place where if you have a question that you want to ask me, if you have something that you're not sure about for the assignment, you can put it there and I will respond to it. I'll try to give you a full answer, and that way everyone can see it and everyone can learn from it. We already have one student who's done that, Bahare, sorry, I hope I said it right, but you gave me an email with a really great question, so I've included that as the first post with my answer as well. So everyone take a look at that. I think that could be really helpful for you. And that specifically is where I have given a much more detailed answer about using logos as the kind of warrant, which is another way you can approach the warrant. So take a look at that, and if you have a question, I encourage you to submit it there, but you absolutely don't have to. If you feel shy, if you don't feel comfortable doing it that way, you still have the option of emailing me, and that's totally fine. Now the second thing that I've posted, other than the videos in this folder, is I've posted some old assignments. Now I want to emphasize that the names were taken off, and these are students who in the past have agreed to let me use their papers. So this isn't something I do unless your student feels comfortable with it. But I've shared these assignments, including my comments, the grade breakdown, and the in-text comments as well. So please take a look at those. I think they could be really, really helpful and really instructive. And I've included a range of grades going all the way from an A paper down to an F paper. So that'll help you see exactly what mistakes you want to avoid. One thing to note is that most of those papers are not from an ECE class. They're not on the topic of gender-neutral parenting. They're on the topic of BCI, which is a technical thing because it was for my engineering students. So I've given a description of BCI just to give you a little bit of context. You'll see it right there when you click on the link to access the papers. So please read that first. Read those bullet points that I've given you first. That'll help you get more out of reading those student papers, and that'll help you do even better. So I'm running out of time. It's almost 10 minutes again, but please take your time, go through all of these, all of those student essays, go through materials from the last few lessons, and if you're having trouble, if you're feeling nervous, if you're worried about this assignment, please remember that you can always email me. I'm flexible. I'm happy to give extensions, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye.